You are listening to episode number 13 of the Everyday Tonics podcast, and this is part 2 of my interview with Brandon from ModernTherapy.online.
I've spent the last 6 years learning everything I know from the world's top natural health experts. And from what I learned, all of their results came from their daily habits. But the real question is, how do you make them easy for you? This podcast is here to give you the answer. Join me and follow along as I bring on the world's top health experts to talk about what they do. My name is Daxy, and welcome to the Everyday Tonics podcast.
All right, everyone. So this is me finishing up the interview with Brandon from Modern Therapy, and it's pretty interesting. We talk about things like your social circle, and it doesn't matter what level you're at. There's good advice in this episode. But I just want to remind you guys that it's not going to last much longer. This coupon code I have for 1 week free of online therapy with Modern Therapy Online. This is a really good value. You can use this. Anyone can use this pretty much. You can use it as a coach or any questions you have if you're curious. You can even use it for a friend if you like, who you know has some things going on in their life. And the code for that is Everyday Tonics. When you check out and you do a consultation on their website, it's 1 week free of therapy, texts, calls, videos, whatever you want. So with that, let's get back into the episode. I was reading, I think it was on one of your posts for an event that I didn't even know this, but of all the mental illnesses, eating disorders has the highest mortality rate. And it's weird. I think of all the mental illnesses, eating disorders are the ones that people keep to themselves the most. I don't know if I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right about that.
I don't know. Can you go a little more in depth about it? Like what's going on in the mind of someone who has an eating disorder and what they should be, thinking of and how important it is for them to get help?
Yeah, sure. So eating disorders are, kind of very, very specific. There's different types of eating disorders that people struggle with. So, and the common ones that most of us know about are like anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder. And, what eating disorders really are at the end of the day is that they're about control and they're about rules. So people with eating disorders live with a very strict set of rules that they follow surrounding food and their relationship. Things like making sure everything sits correctly on a plate, not eating at certain times, or maybe, the binging and purging behavior that, happens with bulimia. So it's about rules, right? And it's a very private illness. A lot of times people around the individual don't know what's happening. It's done in secret. But it's one of the most deadly mental illnesses because of the physical effects that it has on the body. Somebody who's anorexic, is going to deprive themselves from food until, basically their body almost shuts down. So it's very common, 1/3 of people with eating disorders will die from having them. And around 30 million people in the US suffer from them. 1/3, the other 1/3 is going to remain chronically ill for the rest of their lives. It's a very, very difficult thing to recover from because the rules are so kind of ingrained in, their lives, right? So recovering from that is very difficult. And then the final 1/3, will reach some sort of recovery. The recovery process a lot of times for eating disorders it gets to a point where they have to be checked into an inpatient environment where they're monitored 24/7, where they're, given meal plans. They work with a nutritionist, they work with a therapist, they work with, different professionals. The difficult part with eating disorders though is when, they kind of return to normal life and, they have to see a variety of different specialists, but they don't have that 24-hour kind of care that they were used to in the inpatient environment. So adjusting and coming back to life and making sure that they're knowing their triggers and they're, being on top of, old behaviors if they start to come back, that's one of the challenging things too. And it's definitely something that, modern therapy is very, capable of helping people with. The nice thing about, the online therapy is that you can kind of have a therapist in your pocket.
So let's say you have a friend who, and I think a lot of people have friends who they think they have mental illnesses and, they just try to support them by being friends, but, if you ever want to take that next step with someone and, they're sharing something with you and, it's a serious issue, whether it's OCD or ADHD or things like that, or even an eating disorder, what would you recommend to a person to like how to push that person into therapy, or how to like, or even just how to like negotiate that relationship with them?
Yeah, I think that like one of the important things, number one, is like to just like be supportive if you know that somebody's struggling with something. A lot of people don't realize, that they have a mental illness until they go to a therapist and they're diagnosed. A lot of the friends and family around an individual might like notice that they have like very wild mood swings, manic and depressive. Maybe that's like a sign that, hey, there could be something deeper there. So I think that if you have a friend who you can visibly tell that like something's not right, I think the best thing that you can do is just kind of be supportive, be there for that person, and then like maybe recommend that they talk to somebody in a way that's not intimidating. If then on the other side of the spectrum, if somebody's has a mental illness and they make their friends and family aware of it, the solid the best thing that you can do for them is to just be supportive.
That's a good answer. Yeah. So what percentage of you think like mental illnesses or problems come from like the educational system? Because to me, like as I got older, everyone has their own things in their head that it's not mental illnesses, but it's just like limiting beliefs and stuff that people have. And something that kind of solved that for me was like philosophy. I started reading a lot of philosophy, Stoic philosophy, but that's not like taught in school. Like that's not a subject in school, but like studying life. So yeah, what do you think of the role education plays in mental health?
I think education is huge. I think that society rather has been kind of scared of mental health for a very long time, and it's really a fairly new field when you compare it to like medicine. Mental health is. So I think that educating people on, hey, what is depression exactly? Like what classifies that as a mental illness? Educating people about the symptoms, educating them about just everything in general related to mental health is going to remove the stigma, because people are scared of things that they don't know about. So I think education is key in removing stigma and making mental health less of a scary thing.
Yeah. What are your favorite like sources of education, whether it's people, books, or like what courses? Like, what do you think that's out there right now that people, that you resonate with, that people can like get benefit from, other than a therapist, of course?
Yeah, I'm doing a therapist. I actually love podcasts. So I think podcasts are great. Like one of the things that I've done and I've kind of implemented in my life is, instead of listening to music in the car, I'll turn on a podcast. And, I find when I'm driving in between appointments, it's just like, I'm listening to something that's like productive, that's like educating me about a topic. Psych Central is a great podcast.
I forget who said it. It was some like famous speaker, but he says like whenever he's in his car, he thinks of it of a university on wheels. He's always like listening to podcasts, educating himself.
Yeah. That changed my life. Like listening to podcasts in the car.
100%. Yeah.
You learn all these cool little things that that they don't teach in school or that you wouldn't find somewhere else. So, and it's just an easy thing to kind of ride and listen to.
And also, like, I mean, speaking of the car, I feel like people are driving now more than ever. Even me, like, I drive a lot for certain like work I do, but it's insane, like how, like when I see people get frustrated when they're driving. Like to me, like when I get excited to drive because that's my moment to like reflect or like do meditations or like think about little things or listen to a podcast, because I always try to make like this. I don't try to make space or things that can be bad, like waiting in a line or something. I try to like flip it on its head and make it like the most productive ever, like that space of time. So like, what would you recommend to people who get road rage? Because I think that's like the most, like if you get road rage, like there has to be a problem going on in your head, I think. Yeah,
for sure. Road rage is, and it's funny that you bring up this topic because I was literally talking about it the other day, like driving on the road. You watch some of these people, and I think people forget that they're moving in a 3-ton vehicle at 65 miles an hour. Like it's a very dangerous, very dangerous situation. So road rage is definitely like a problem that happens a lot, and it's very dangerous to the person and everybody around them. I think that it happens. I think road rage is a result of a bigger problem, which is, I just think, like, going back to stress and anxiety. So I think that,
probably like cortisol in their blood or something.
yeah, for sure. Like, I want to go back to that study that I talked about in the American workplace too, because I think that another stat from that is 14% of respondents have felt like striking a coworker in the past year, but didn't. So, like, a lot of times stress and anxiety takes its form out in anger. So I think, there's definitely like some skills, some coping skills that you can use when you're angry, right? Like, just taking a couple of deep breaths really helps. Just like breathing in and out deeply a few times, can drastically like drop your anger. So that's what I would recommend to people who are getting road rage. You have to, another kind of coping skill is to look at your anger and to just kind of like ask yourself why you're getting angry and what can come from this and is it worth it? Like, having almost like a conversation about your anger in your head while you're angry can kind of talk some sense into, lowering those feelings. So for road rage, I would definitely recommend that. For, if it's outside of a car, removing yourself from a situation, definitely helps too.
I have a few more questions before we wrap things up here. My buddy had a book recently. It was by Rupert Sheldrake. I don't know if you know who he is.
I've never heard of him, but
he has very interesting work that he does. I think the book was called Morphic Resonance, but he's had studies about showing like the telepathic nature of like humans, because we're social creatures, but like there is some strange phenomenons that happen with us. Like he had one experiment like about how we notice when people are looking at the back of our heads, or like, I forget his other experience, but like, when you have, you're thinking about someone or they call you or they text you, things like that. And in your mind, because I love the positivity thing, how can people remove like, or what are the biggest sources of negativity in people's life that you think people remove other than like their own thoughts, which is probably the biggest, but
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think that a lot of the times negative energy can come from the people that we're around. I think that's a big one, is that, take a look at,
it's like osmosis. It's just like a transference of energy.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the people that we hang around with are, there's a saying that goes like, the people that we hang around with are, the ones we become similar to, or something like that. But, that's true. I think that a lot of us are in, maybe relationships that aren't good for our health, that are, kind of producing a lot of negativity. Family relationships, can be a lot of negativity in family relationships, even friendships, so one of the things that you can take a look at is what's causing that negativity, and try to do things proactively to change that negativity from positivity. And that could be as simple as, having a conversation with the person to change the dynamic, so that could be a simple solution. In some scenarios, the best answer might be to make a change. I think that maybe not spending as much time with those people, and, adding resources to your life that are gonna push you in a positive direction. So remember, you're always in control. So that's always something that you can do.
Yeah. And it's also like a weird paradox to me. Like, for me, like the biggest lessons I've learned were painful lessons, things that you think in the moment, they're very painful, but those are the things that you remember the most. So yeah, you can take the biggest struggles and like, I mean, some of the most people who have like achieved the most, started from like the worst conditions. Like I heard Oprah Winfrey's story recently, how she got raped when she was a child, and like all these like crazy things. And like now she's Oprah, So
yeah, totally. And that kind of goes back to like our nature versus nurture conversation. I think when people go through traumatic events, either, you kind of go in one or two directions. Either you're resilient and, you kind of overcome that challenge, and that challenge actually you use it to your advantage to push you forward, or you fall victim to it. So depending on what direction you take, that's kind of where you end up. And, that also goes back to kind of like taking control. But it's very difficult, like to go through something that's traumatic, like getting raped or, anything like that, can certainly cause a whole lot of problems and be very, very difficult to recover from. So,
but I mean, that also shapes us, or it could be a big motivating force in your life, something that makes you unique, So as we're winding down here, I mean, I think you emailed me, like you have an awesome offer to give to our listeners. Can you share what that offer is?
Yeah, absolutely. So the offer is to, like May is Mental Health Month. So in honor of Mental Health Month and, in honor of, your show and everything that you're doing with the podcast, we'd love to extend an offer to your listeners who are maybe like hearing this and thinking maybe I should give therapy a try. And, I want to give it a try. We're offering a week of free therapy. So all they would have to do is just go to our website, www.ModernTherapy.online, fill out an initial consultation, use the promo code EverydayTonics, and you'll get 1 week of free therapy on our service.
That's awesome. I mean, I know some people that I'm going to message that have listened to the show. I'm going to be like, that have been messaging me about some things, and I mean, it's free. Like, why would you not want to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm confident that if anybody who has never tried therapy before, gives therapy a try, they're going to really see drastic improvements and changes in their life. So
that's awesome, man. Super generous. And yeah, I did not know it was Mental Awareness Month or Mental Health Month.
Yeah. It's Mental Health Month.
May. Okay. Double M. Okay.
So you'll see man. A lot of mental health walks are going on right now, to raise awareness about, the cause. And so, yeah.
Okay. Man, I mean, I have a lot more questions, but I don't want to keep you here that much longer because I know you're a busy man. So, Brandon, thanks so much for being on the podcast, man. I hope the business does well. I hope you get a lot of people. And yeah, I'm looking forward to people that sign up or listening.
Yeah.
And letting me know when you guys sign up.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. I appreciate you, having me on your show. Keep doing what you're doing.
Cool. Thank you, man. Take care, bro.
All right. Take care.
This is Everyday Tonics.